And welcome once again. I am the database guy. As always, please like and subscribe. We're up to our 13th video on forms, and in this video, what we are going to do is right now we're going to take a look at our database, which is here, what we've gotten up to this point. And one of the things I want to do here to prep us for our coding is you've seen this before. I believe I did this in a previous video. Select all of these controls by hitting the Shift key and clicking it with your mouse. Right click, go to properties, and we're gonna make those, and we're gonna talk about all of this stuff today. Enabled, no. Right, what the difference between all of these are. There we go. And we're gonna do the same thing here with authors as well, and our field here. And we're gonna have enabled, no. Now, when we look at these things, we're going to look at all of the properties, and you can see here they're all grayed out. The properties of controls within a form and a form, for that matter. Now, a form, like any other control, is an object, and an object has attributes that can be changed and modified. It also has methods which can be enacted. And a method, for example, as you see here, it's not an attribute, but the method here is enabled or disabled. Enabled is, in this case, enabled equals no or false, or enabled can equal true or yes. So let's right click and go to design view. Let's look at our form to begin with. Go under our little box there. We click it. I'm going to just click out of it for a minute so it disappears. When you click into it, it'll be a square, and you've seen this before. So we're going to go to our Format tab. Now our Format tab, you always have these 5 tabs in Properties: Format, Data, Event, Other, and All. Event is going to be your VBA code tab. Let's go to it for a minute. We're not going to get into this tab at all today. So caption, if we wanted a caption for the form, we could add it. However, in the mode we're in right now, border style is none. We wouldn't see a caption. So I'm just going to put the word main in here just to show you and go to border style here, and we have either thin, sizable, or dialogue. So let's see what happens if we choose dialogue, and let's right click and go to form view. And you see the word main is in there. That's where it would appear. Okay. Let's go to sizable. Sizable means I can change the size of my. And you'll also see it there, right? We can change the size of it. And then, of course, there's thin, which means it's a very thin border. Probably won't see our caption. Oh, no, we do see it. It's a thin border. And then the last one, of course, is none. Now, we could leave the caption in there, and it's gone. And the reason I like none is because it really interacts interacts as if you would have an actual application. So looking at the 4 of those, dialogue looks like a dialogue. And what happens is in a normal form, it'll be smaller than the form itself, or it'll actually be the size of whatever you required within a form. So if you don't have much on that form, it's going to be very small, versus none would give you the maximum size of that form. And then, of course, sizable, I can change the size of it if I want. And thin, this is a very thin one. So with anything other than none, you can have that caption in there. Okay? All right. That should be straightforward. Now we're in single form here. And by the way, we have 4 options here. And you've sort of seen them. Single form here is, well, I want to just see one record each time, and I want to be able to scroll through those records. In the case of this particular form we're dealing with, we have our main form really is creating our new title, our book rather, I'm sorry, our new book. That's going to be what that is. I think I just set something off here, looking at it now. No, it's fine. What I'm going to do here is going to take these guys here and move them over. see something. That looks right in design view, but let's look at form view. Actually looks fine in form view. Okay. Guess I didn't have that set right. Anyway, let's go back to properties. Okay. So a single form again is one particular form. Continuous, I'm seeing all of my records in one form. It just keeps scrolling down. You've seen that as well. You've seen it with the authors per book, right? So let's go into our form. And this is continuous over here for all of our authors. It lists everything. If I had this in single view, I'd only have one author at a time. I have to scroll through each author. You see here, the books are in continuous. And then these two are single. And they should be, right? Let's see. Let me just minimize this just a little bit. There we go. I'm noticing things are, and you start getting that way. You see the little nuances. And then we have data sheet. Now, data sheet is basically what a table looks like. All right, you'll see a tabular form of data that comes down. And there's a forewarning on data sheet, by the way. I'm going to come over here for a moment. It's in continuous forms. I'm going to put it in data sheet view. Let's go to form view, and you can see what I'm talking about. Now, here is the forewarning I have on this. You notice the titles of those particular columns are the names of the controls. We'll go to design view for a minute, and we're going to go to other. Let's see, is it other? No. Let me see where it is. Oh, it's in the control itself. I'm sorry, not the form. Hello. Go to other. There we go. See the label name here? I'm sorry, data sheet caption here. This is the one here, so I could put here ISBN, right? And I could put on this one the data sheet caption being title. All right, and then I could put over here year. Okay. And publisher. What happens is if you're, the old way that Access had this is it would take exactly whatever your field names were, and your field names in your that is in your table, and it would make them uh, the column headers. Now we go into it. Now you can see what I've just done. Whoops, I missed one on there. Well, that's one that, believe it or not, is off to the side here. And go to properties. We're going to just say here, pub ID. Not that we need that. And I'm going to explain why that's being seen. So let's go to form view. Yeah, here we go. So you can see here that that's how you can, if you want something in datasheet view, you want to name the column headers other than the controls. We're going to come back here for a minute. And properties. We're going to bring this into, go to format, bring this into our continuous view forms. When we do that, now you'll notice here, I don't see the publisher ID, and there's a good reason why, and that is because it's hidden. We're going to get back to that concept in a minute. And here, by the way, we're taking the titles from above, which are going down. So that's what we're kind of doing there. We could have had our own labels here, but there's no point in doing that. Okay, so that is the different views. Now here, we can have you change or have the user change between them. By the way, what is layout view? I didn't discuss that one, and it's not even here, right? So I'm going to right click into layout view right here. Layout view is how things are laid out, and I never use this view. I don't know. It just doesn't seem, I think it's an old antiquated, it tells you where things are and how to move things about and design things. And in layout view, by the way, we're going to see all of the things we see. If I go to form view, I'm not going to see what's hidden. So layout view really is to design and how you want it to look. I haven't really had much use for it. If you want to try working with it, by all means, go ahead. but we're going to take layout view. We're going to say no. If you say no and you only have it here, now if I were to say no to all of them, watch, you can't do that. You can't because you have to have at least one default view. It won't do that. All right. If you had a picture in here, um, you could select the picture. You could have it either as an embedded picture or linked or shared. I'm not going to get into that right now. Tiling, meaning you can tile or put, if it's a small picture, it looks like it's a whole bunch of little tiles, right? Alignment centered and clip is a type of mode. You can have clip, I think it's stretch zoom, stretch horizontal, stretch vertical. When we get into doing images, excuse me, at one point, I will show you that concept. It's not important. The width of the form, and let's give us a little background on forms. The maximum width, I believe, is 22.5. If you're that big, I think you're using a lot of real estate and probably you don't need to be that big. I've seen them that big for good reason. And they're usually dynamic forms where they're auto-populated, and I'm not going to get into that even just yet. There's something really cool we can do with Visual Basic. You're going to love it when you see it, and it may become useful for your needs. Auto center, the picture will auto center itself. Auto resize, it will enlarge itself to its maximum size based upon its controls. Fit to screen, says yes or no. Yes is just fit it to the screen. Use as much real estate as you can. We went over border style. The record selectors, basically, if we're doing this in single, which we are, we want to select a record to modify it. We would have them up there. Now you're not going to see them, I don't think. Let's try to put a record selector up there as yes and see what happens. It's usually a big, there it is. It's a big thing here. So if I selected this, I could then modify the record, but there isn't anything to really do that. What it would modify, by the way, would be what's at the top here, this whole thing with title year when we're putting in a new book. Okay, so we're going to leave that as no. And navigation buttons here, we're going to hit yes for a minute so you can see what they are. You'll see them at the bottom. There they are. So it's just one of one because, and there's a good reason why, and you're going to see that. But if you were, well, we're in single mode. If we were in continuous mode, you might have one of 100, but I don't think it's going to matter because I can't put it in continuous form because the subforms in continuous form it won't work. Leave it in single. But the point is, on the navigation buttons, it will tell you how many records you can go through, but it's limited to the fact that if you're in single form, it's obviously one record. If it is continuous form, it'll be as many as you have. And that's another caveat, as I just mentioned. If your subform's continuous, your main form cannot be. You can't go through multiple records going through multiple records. So your main form has to be a single while your continuous is multiple, or your main form could be continuous while a subform you have of it could be single to show an extra record. Well, there's a note there. Navigation captions, not going to be concerned with that. Dividing lines, it's not important. Scroll bars, we're going to hit both here. You can have a vertical or a horizontal set of scroll bars, and you kind of see the grayness to it here. You could have one here and here. If you have enough records, you can see those scroll bars, and you'll see examples of that as we go on. Right now, we're not seeing, oops, I'm sorry, we're not seeing that. We just set control box to yes. Let's take a look at what that looks like. It may not appear and it won't appear in um, the border style we have. So let's bring it to sizable. And there's the control box here with the X on it. So I'll put the close button here as well. Yes, and the min-max button as both. So if we go into this, now you're going to see all three of those buttons, right? So obviously you can minimize, right? You can bring it back up. You can maximize, okay? This form isn't maximized, but it's maximized to the window. And of course, the X would close it. We don't want that. These kinds of things for an end user are not something we want. Now, if I go to none here, I think these should disappear. They don't appear in none, and they don't appear in none. So you have to have those things in some sort of a dialogue that you can do it with. And they're antiquated as well. They're old. I never use them. Neither, because I don't find a purpose for them. I want the user to be within the application and working. Okay. Um, movable is yes. What that means is here, if I should be able to move it, or actually not be able to move it. No. Um, usually movable will allow you to move the window, and I think it has to do with the fact that the border style is um, none. Let's see. Yeah, now I can move it. Um, when it's none, I can't move it. However, and there's a really cool thing you're going to see, and I'm going to show it to you at some point within this course, is that we go back to none and show you it's not movable. Or the limitations on it, it won't move. But there is a way to create a movable form that has no borders. And a client had asked me about that one. We're going to leave it as yes, as it's no consequence. Don't worry about the split form sections here or the grid. Um, and layout for print, if you want to print the form, you have that layout there and so forth. The orientation is left to right. I'd leave it as that. Your options are left to right and right to left. I'd never mess with this. Okay, and the palette source is a default. That's for your colors. In data, our record source for this is going to be the one for a new book, and that is our table books DE temp. Dynaset is our record type. I never monkey with this either. You can have snapshot, which is just never, it's one snapshot of what the data set would look like, but you can't really move through it. And inconsistent updates, I wouldn't touch this. I wouldn't touch this at all for the record set type. Fetching defaults, fine if you want to leave it there. Filter on load, no. I wouldn't let it filter at all. Basically, when you're on load, if you should filter to yes, what happens is if you have a filter in there, it'll filter to that record. But we're going to get to filtering anyway at some point, and right now it's unimportant. Filtering, by the way, becomes a method of a form in some ways. All right, and these here, order on load, is the order for the records on load set to yes. I haven't ever monkeyed with that. I just leave it. What I normally do is in the record source, if I'm going to set a order, I would set an order to how I populate those records, uh, alphabetically or some other way, ascending or descending. So the interesting things here are these. Now, data entry, what that means is that when you open a form, it opens to a brand new record. That's what it means. Now, in our situation, I've never really used this because I don't like it. It has a lot of nuances and a lot of problems and challenges you're going to face. And one of them is, well, once you create a new record, you have to save it, and then you sort of have to bring up the next new record, and it's clunky to me. So I leave it off, but I allow additions to be yes. And in this case, that means I can add a new record. That means I come in on it. I can come in on a new record, but I will see the other records as well, potentially. So what does that mean? Well, in the case of our adding a new book, there are no new records. There are no old records, rather, or any records that are there in that table. We're using that table primarily to add a new record. If I were doing this in the main table, I would see at the bottom a new record field to add a new record when I allow additions true, or yes. But if I'm doing it from this kind of a temp table, which is why I prefer the temp table, then I am simply adding one record to it. Allow additions is yes. Allow deletions, I don't want to delete it. Edits, I have to edit, change whatever I need in it, of course. No filters, obviously, and record locks, none. So in the mode that you're in to add a record in a temp table, and this is the method I'm showing you because it's really a better way to do it, is to allow additions to be yes. And then what happens is once you save that, okay, that record, and you update the main table, append it and update the main table to it, which is in order by book title, I think it's title. Then in order to make a change to it, you're going to have to edit that book with the edit button, which we have here. Okay. Um, and what then happens there is it's going to then append that record to the temp table again, but this time it's going to change this form to allow additions as no, but allow edits as yes. So in other words, what I'm saying is within that particular table, I'm not going to add any more records. I'm just going to edit what I have. When I'm happy, I'm going to save it and go back. So ideally for this particular form, we're going to see what happens if we have this. Set everything to no. I just want to see what you're going to see. And we're going to see nothing. Okay, we're going to see absolutely nothing. So let's try edits of yes. Because, and again, nothing, because what happens is, okay, we have to have some form of a default. And there we go. In order for us, for the main form, up here, we have to have something here to be able to do something to it at some point in time. So what would happen here, I'm just thinking, we might not even have to worry about this setting this to no, because if we do, I think we're going to wipe everything out, and we do. We can leave it there because we're not going to add anything. We're simply going to, once the record is edited or in there, and it should go in there, we can test this out. Once we append it to it, we're going to have a record there. And this is what I think is happening. Because we're saying allow additions to no or on it, there's no record in there, so it won't show anything. Let's do a little test here of this theory, and it should be fine. We're going to go to our tables. And we're going to go to our books, books temp. And we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, X, Y, Z, test, year, and 1. So we come into this. Obviously, you see it in there. Let's see what happens now, taking out allow additions. We have a record in there. So the concept would be we should be able to at least edit it. And we are. Okay, so, and this is my point, which is when there's no record in there, okay, and I set allow additions to no, I get nothing because I have nothing within, there are no records to display within the table. So, and we'll show you that again. Yeah, get rid of it. So since there's no records to display to edit, you get a blank form. All right, so what we're going to do here then is we're obviously going to leave this as a yes, so that when we open the form, we're going to see something, even though no table is, nothing's there. When we append our record to edit, we're going to turn off the allow additions to no, and we're going to only edit information. We're going to save it. When we save it, we're going to reset our allow additions to yes. That's the workflow. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So these are methods within a form: allow additions, allow deletions, edits, and filters. And what they do is they allow the form to be in a particular mode. Okay. Don't worry about events. We talked about them. That's for VBA. So pop-up and modal. Pop-up means that it's going to be when the form opens, whatever form it might be. And let's give an example of that one. I think we did one here. Boy, yeah, let's take this one here and let's, oh boy. Let's change the color to this because I think this is what's really, Go to format. This really is not. Let's go to more. Let's go to. All right, no. Let's get a color up here to look good. Off of that's good. We're going to copy that. We can always change it later. Darn it. I did it. I hit the wrong combination of keys. All right. Okay. So we'll save this. Yeah. All right. So you see this activate book here. You notice I can't click outside of it. So if we go here, we're in modal view. Let's see what pop-up does as well. I don't think it's going to give us anything too different. No. It's really the same. But a pop-up appears and let's see. Let's set this up to dialogue. All right. A pop-up is going to sort of look like a pop-up. Now I can move this, of course. If I were in modal, I don't believe I could. Let's see. I shouldn't be able to move it in modal. Pop-ups, no. I think because of the pop-up, it makes it movable. If I remember. Yeah, I can move it in modal. But I can't go underneath it. So to get to the point of all of this, what the difference between the two of them are, modal means I must make a choice now and do something now. Because I cannot go back to my main screen or any other screen without completing this choice. So it forces something. Pop-up by itself just brings it as a pop-up, and yet I could click underneath it. So in other words, let's do it from, to show you the difference from here. Turn off the modal. We're going to turn off modal. We're going to leave pop-up. So it'll still pop up, right? But I can go beneath it, and I could move this around and go beneath it and do things over here. Now, if I were in modal, couldn't do that because what we'll do is if I switch this, right, now I can't get to anything below it until I complete the action here. We're going to save that. So, design view. All right. So pop up in modal. One of them just brings the dialogue or the form itself up into the screen quickly as a pop-up. Modal means, sorry, you have to finish the action in this particular screen before you can do anything else. And it's really nice. I like having modal to force an issue with my end user. Okay, the cycle of the records, you can have all records, current record, or current page. I generally go between all records and current record. All records for a continuous, current record for a single, which is what we have. Current page is a very strange one, and I'm not going to get into that right now. It's sort of just being on the page you're at with the record you're on. That's the best way I can describe it. Ribbon name, don't worry about this right now. We're going to see that way down the line. And toolbars, we're not going to mess with at all. The shortcut menu, this will be explained at a later date what this is, okay? And the menu bar, we're not worried about. Shortcut menu bar, we're not worried about. And all of these things, no. This one here is quite interesting because it's going to come into play. It's called the tag feature, and it's a way of being able to locate controls by a tagged alphanumeric characters. It's really cool. And I'm going to show you that at some point. And then, of course, there's all, right? All of them there. Now, we let's go to a control, because in a control, it's a little bit different than a form. Whoops, and control C, get that out of there. Let's do one down here. Doesn't matter. So the format of a control is different, right? Where you have the format and you can set a control to a particular format depending upon how you want it. We're not going to get into that in a moment. But if it is something like, let's go to year for a minute. Yeah, see, if it's a number, you could set it to a particular number format. If it is a text, then you can set that text to a certain textual format and so on. We'll get into that at a later time. Decimal places, if it's numerical, how many. And then there's this one, visible. Yes, you saw that here. These are not visible. So visible is a method which says, show me the control or hide it. And why would you use visible? It's one of the three big ones. There's visible, enabled, and locked. We talked about enabled. We'll go back to it. But what I want to do is when I want that control not to be accessible to my user, I can make it invisible. So if the cancel and confirm were accessible at the time add books was accessible, it would be confusing. I want to have, now I could, when I click add books, make that not visible. But to me, in a user instance, that's also going to confuse them. I normally like to have it disabled, okay? So, but visible is an important one. It's either yes or no. And as you can see for these two here, it is no. And we did that for a reason, okay? We did it for a reason, all right? Again, you have picture types and things of that nature, back style. So let's go to this here. Back style is normal, or it can be transparent. Now, transparent means that, let me show you what it looks like. The back style goes away. It just looks like it's slapped on top of the background. Normal gives it some depth, and our back color is all white. Our border is transparent. You know, our border could be solid, could be dashes, could be dash dot, could be all kinds of things. Right now it's transparent. If you wanted to have a border around that control, you could do it, and then your width. Well, so I mean, you could get crazy here, and that's a solid one. Those are dashes and dash dots and some crazy stuff. Now I'm pretty thick for that. We're going to go back to one. Border color, the color of that border you want, the special effects to it, flat. What else do we have? Raised, sunken, etched, chiseled, shadowed, and so on. Scroll bars. Controls can have scroll bars too, but I don't know why Access did this. It's almost unusable. The font name of the control, depending on what font you want. The size, its alignment to the left. You could have it left, center, or let's see, left, center, or right. Hang on a minute. Left, center, right, or distribute, or something like that. You can play around with that. The weight is normal, from anywhere from thin to heavy. Let's see what heavy does. We're at normal. Yeah, heavy is really thick. Hang on a moment. Thin, very light. We're going to go back to normal. Underline, if you want to underline, italicize your four color. This is actually going to be your font color, four color. You can make it any color you want. Your line spacing, don't worry about that. Not going to make it a hyperlink or display it as a hyperlink unless you need a hyperlink displayed. And then I wouldn't worry about too much of this stuff here, the grid lines, the paddings, and the margins and things like that. It's a little bit over the top, some of it. Control source, what is going to populate here? And notice if I took out, I'm going to take out title for a minute, it becomes an unbound control. So what's the difference between a bound and an unbound control? An unbound control is not displaying data from a table. And you're going to see unbound controls when we get to our next video or the video after. Hopefully we'll finish up with forms shortly. But an unbound control has no value in it. However, you can select a value from a drop down or something else that's within it that you're populating, and you can use that value in any way you see fit. But it doesn't have a, a value to it, meaning that um, you're not getting data from the table. Okay, and sometimes you can't even connect to that data. Um, how can I put it? You couldn't get the value of an unbound sometimes. There's reasons why. Your text format says plain text here or rich isn't valid for that property. It's telling me I can't use rich in this case. Don't know why. I usually don't touch that. Input mask, if you want to have the user enter something in as an input mask, we're not going to touch these yet, but it could be a phone number. You could create your own. You can create your own custom mask if you want. We'll see that at some other time, perhaps. What default value, what it should be. This is only good if you need to have a default value. I don't really worry about this so much because if you leave it blank, the default value would be blank if you're creating a new record. It usually happens with new records. So we might want to, I don't know, well, if we had an auto numbering thing here or some sort of numbering code here, let's say for an invoice number, we might have a default value as a formula to create the next invoice number, but validation rules I don't bother with in text. I'm going to tell you why, because I validate with VBA code. This is the old technique, and it's a carryover from years gone by of you would validate each control to make sure that something was present. When you go into this, you're going to be in your builder, and you're going to do some sort of logic, and then your text would be what would be displayed if it didn't meet the validation criteria, right? Filter lookup, again, I just leave it as a default. The reason why is if you do apply a filter, it will apply it. And let me get to the two big ones here. We saw what an enable did. The ones above here are not, they're enabled to no. Locked, on the other hand, okay, means that I cannot get in there, or I can't get in there to make any changes, but it's enabled. So let's show an example of that. Well, I'm not gonna, let's see if we can do it from this one here. We're gonna enable it, yeah, and we're gonna lock it, yeah. Doing that, I can't type anything into it. So it's accessible, but I can't type anything into it. All right. And I could go with disabled, enabled no, and notice locked yes. And notice it's still white. It's not grayed out because, let's see here. Let me just see. Maybe actually, let's see if it, yes, let's see what happens when I open it up. Yeah, it's still gray. It's still white. So if I go to this particular control and I say locked no, enabled no, it now grays out to both. So what's happening here is, say yes, is that whenever something is locked, you cannot change anything on its control. That's really what locked means. The control itself is locked from any changes. So in this case here, the enabled won't work. Disabling it won't work. Nothing will work. And as you can see here, I think I left a border on here. Let's see, border style none, transparent. That's what I did. Okay. So that is enabled and locked. So you have visible, enabled, and locked, the three big ones. And I usually don't use locked at all. It's either enabled or visible. Okay, getting into the the name of the control, and here we have text title. The label name If there's a label associated with it, it'll show up there. Let's see over here. It should show up on this one. It actually doesn't. It actually doesn't. Uh, oh boy. There we go. Let's see again. Any of these have a label on here? No. So I could pick the label name here. And well, what happens is when you create a text box, a label is usually next to it. And you can associate a label with a control too. You can do that. And you see it appear here. You don't have to have a label name. Your data sheet caption, we talked about that. If we're in data sheet mode, you're going to have the caption there. Here, there is none. So if you're going to be in format mode, you don't have in form mode, you don't have to. And this again is only necessary if you're going to go between both modes for some reason that you want. Your keyboard behavior should be set to default. Now, what Access did, I don't know why. I can't figure out what they were thinking, but most of their controls when they're created are in what's called new line in field. So it can actually allow you to enter continuous lines within a field. I don't think it's very useful at all. If you want to control text here, um, uh, it might work. Let's see. This is the title. All right. So go to form view. I don't see it coming up. Usually it was for the old, and we don't usually do help in these kinds of things, but we're going to let that go. Normally, you can have, and it would pop up to tell you what it was for. The tab index is interesting. This is the index that you have 1, 2, 3, and 4 here, right? This is the index that you will find when you come over here, right? A square in our tab order. The order based upon the index. That's what that's for. And it's usually auto set, or it's set when you move the controls in the tab ordering. So you don't want to touch that. Tab stop is interesting. If you set tab stop to yes, hello, what will happen is you can move between controls using the tab key or the enter key for that matter. Either one works. And it's up to you if you want to use that. Now let me see here. Here we had it set to yes because we want to move between each one. And that's fine because it does work for us. But here, we don't want to edit anything here or change anything. We just want to view it, so it's a no. Status bar text, we don't need to worry about that. At this point in time, short menu and help context, we're never going to connect help. It used to be that you could connect help to an application, and it does work sometimes, and it can work. I don't have a need for it at this point because I think when you write up user guides and other things, it seems to be more popular today to have an auto ability to help the user, auto help or some sort of help context to help the user navigate around. But I don't see a point to it myself. I just don't. And I think people are adept enough to know how to get around. But and the other side of it too is when you have, and we're going to see this with VBA, message boxes to control what happens, you are actually helping the users that way. Okay. Seeing these fields here, the user has a good idea of what to enter. ISBN, title, year, and so on. So we're going to stay away from the help. Auto tab automatically sets the tabbing, and I don't ever have that on. It's usually no. Vertical, I'm not worried about these yet. Again, as I said, this sentence mode here, this is for your combo boxes. As you type in to a combo box, it will begin to populate the name. You'll see that later on. And of course the tag we talked about, which is an interesting control. So we went through all these controls here. Let's look at a button here, by the way, see what that has on it. So on the button here, right, you don't have any tab stop on this one, tab index or whatever, tab stop. We do have a yes. So your index is 0. I take that back. But your default says no on your button, which means it isn't selected, meaning that it's if you have the default set to yes, it would be selected, the button. You have to select it. Cancel, no, is a default. That means that you want to cancel the selection. So I wouldn't worry about these two at this point. Our name obviously is our name of our command button. There's our tag as well here. And a lot of these things we saw, I'm not going to touch. Not going to touch at all. Format is basically the same as you had in anything with a format, but you have a hover color, a pressed color, hover for color, pressed for color, and so on. I'm not going to go deeply into these yet until we need to talk about those controls. Your back style is normal or can be transparent. Why you would have a transparent button, don't really know. Okay, you could put a picture in a button. We've seen that here. All right, you could put, in this case here, this one here has a caption in the button. So here we have a caption, add book, add authors, and so on. The others, right, we did that one there. The data, there's only piece of data is enabled yes and no. And that's because you can't have a button carrying data. And of course, you have less events on a button anyway. All right. Um, let us open this up. So I think we hit on pretty much the basics of all of that, of all of what is. Whoa, what happened there? Okay, I'm going to just fix this up. Wow, it just scooted all the way over. I'm going to say no when I close it. I don't want to change anything. I might. Okay. Don't know what it was that did that. Let's go back into it. All right, I'm just wondering what this is here. It's a label. I don't know why it's up there. Oh, it's the ISBN label. Yeah, it's the label for this, probably this field here. Let's save that. Okay, so at this point now, right, we have gotten into all the different types of ways you can control where you can change controls and forms and things like that by its properties. There's one more area I want to show. If you click into a blank spot and go to properties, you're going to be in subform DE book. Let me just see here. There we go, form header. So you're going to be in the properties here. You're going to see the different objects. So form header and footer. You don't see any footer here. It's sort of blanked out. Your book command, add book, edit book. You can go through them and see where they are. If you don't know where a control is, your detail is your background into here. It's the same thing as clicking in the background here. It's your detail. Your form is the whole form itself. Okay. Your form footer is here, as we said, in your form header. And then you have controls, your ISBN control, your publisher ID, which is off screen, publisher, which is somewhere off screen here, at title is here, and then year. So you can go through all of your controls at will, and then every form has that. Click into this one here, properties, and you'll see from the drop down, right? So we have different types of. Now this is label 5. What is this label 5 here? It's not label named. So I see. So we're going to call this one LBLISBN. Whoops, sorry. There I go. All right, hitting the wrong key. We're going to save it, and you got to save it when the changes are made. So then if I come into here now, there it is. Detail form author label, field author label. So here we're going to put this one as LBL author. We don't want to have that. It's taking it from the field name. Text, form footer. Good. All right. And here, let's see here how we are. And you can go through the various objects. CBO author, form, yep, okay. And of course, the last one would be the main one here, right? And you can see a lot of what's going on here. So this box here is our box that goes around. And then our publisher is going to be, let's see, right there. That's our command button for that one, our cancel, and then of course our confirm. There's our detail, which will be here, right? Our form in general, we've worn that one. Our form footer at the bottom, our form header at the top, as you can see. And we could click into it here, it would be the same thing. Labels for DE main. Let's see here. Where do we see it? Yeah, the big one there, the main header. ISBN, of course, these are the labels for each one. Publisher, title, year. And now, subform authors, which will be right there, right? Subform books DE, which is right here. And the other one is subform books, subform DE authors. And they're kind of, I don't know. I know what I called it, but I'm not crazy of DE books because it really is not editing the book. Data entry books, you're not editing them. We can always change that if we want at some point. We probably will. Oh, and hang on a second. We didn't finish. Text ISBN, text title, and of course text year. So you can connect and look at each and every control in your form that you wish. Little caveats on the form. When you have too many controls, sometimes it doesn't like it. Let's go to database tools here. And let us go to analyze performance. And let's select the main form. Let's see what it says. Use fewer controls. Remove the module behind this form or report. What module behind this form or report? Contains no code. Right. So in other words, if we go into database and Visual Basic and main here, yeah, it contains no code. They say remove it. It doesn't matter. And it's showing already with this number of controls. There's too many here. I've had forms with a lot of controls on them and never had an issue with it. I would say less is more. Let's go back to the performance again and let's try that one again. So what's a recommendation here? Key. So you've got an idea on this one, and here you got a suggestion. All right. Um, to have fewer controls on your form, try breaking into multiple forms, which is really what we have. We do have that. All right. So we don't have a lot here. Um, if you select all and you optimize, all right, I'm not going to do it because it's going to start taking things out, and I don't want to. So, right at this point right now, we go back to our presentation on 13. We're still in forms. So we've gone through controls. When I get into the next video, what I want to show you, and it's going to be a bit tricky because what's going to happen is, okay, is that we're going to have to do things manually. So what I want to show you is when you have 3 combo boxes that you're searching through each one and you're narrowing down your search, how they connect and what happens. We're done with this particular, for now, with this particular form, the main form for the database here. But what we're going to do is I'm going to create a way of searching through books and authors and publishers so that I can narrow down the list of what I have, right? And then from there, find what I'm looking for. So I want to have 3 combo boxes in a row, in a column actually, or it could be in a row. It doesn't matter however you want to set that up. And when I search for the first one, I want to narrow down the selections of the second one. When I search for the second one, I want to narrow down selections of the third one even more. In other words, I want to be able to search for things without having to list everything and show you how that works and show you some other things that are within controls. Now, before we end today, why don't we take a look at, and there's one on here. Actually, there's more than one. There's 2. Um, under combo boxes, under data, you know that you have a row source or a source of that. And so what happens there is that you're populating the data in the combo using a row source, right? So again, as always, like and subscribe. I am the database guy, and when we come back, we will obviously continue with forms. Have a good day, night, evening, or wherever you are.